Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi
Assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Firstly, Eid Mubarak to everyone listening and to our Shaykh here. How are you both doing?
Alhamdulillah, barakallahu feek, Sayyidi Allah.
Alhamdulillah, wa kullu aam wa antum bakhair.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, so today's topic is the moonsighting. I think there's been a lot of discussion on this. Obviously, Shaykh Noorud-deen and Shaykh Jamili, you both obviously had a discussion previously, which we put out, which I felt that kind of addressed most of the things. But, you know, time and time again, we have the same kind of issues being raised, same things being said. So I thought it'd be good to do a Q&A on this and address those things. But, you know, just some housekeeping, guys, and please do like, share, and subscribe. And if you have any questions, please do join us in studio. We will give preference to those who are in the studio, inshallah. The link is in the description, and I will shortly paste it in the live chat as well, inshallah. So having said that, firstly, we're going to start off with some of the comments that have been given in response to some of the videos Shaykh Noorud-deen has put out. Shaykh, we'll start with the kind of the most latest kind of objections we've had to the videos. The first one is that, you know, the fact that global sighting is the opinion in the Hanafi Madhab, a person is challenging that. They're saying that there's research being done by some mufti who has said that, you know, no fuqaha of the Hanafi Madhab was of the opinion of global moon sighting in the first 500 years, at least. So maybe you could start by commenting on that, inshallah.
Okay, mashallah. The first thing to say about this is, since when has that been a rule in the Hanafi Madhab? When have the Hanafi scholars looked at a masala and said, well, actually, this wasn't mentioned in the first 100, 200 years of the Hanafi Madhab, and therefore rejected. It's not part of the Madhab. Since when was that the rule? That's, you know, you need to, people who are saying this need to establish that first and foremost, because otherwise anybody can just make up any rule. Somebody could tell me something which is well established in the Hanafi Madhab, you know, in the books of Imam Tahawi himself, and I say, no, I don't accept it. You know, Imam Tahawi and those who come after him, they all mention this masala. I say, no, I don't accept it because, you know, we can't trace it back to Imam Abu Hanifa himself. Therefore, it's not part of the Madhab. So can I do that as well? Okay. You know, when is it fine for people to just invent new rules with regards to what the madhab is and what the madhab is not? That's my first point. My second point is, so those scholars who did mention it, be it Ibn Abidin rahimallahu ta'ala, be Ibn Humam, Imam al-Aini, Sahib al-Ikhtiyar, Imam al-Mawsili, Fatawa Hindi also has it, yani all of these other books that have it. So what are we saying? Are we saying that those are not sound representations of the madhab? Is that what we're saying? So those books are not reliable. They're not sound representations of the madhab. You know, is that a rule now? So the same people who for decades have been quoting those books are now going to rubbish those books and say they're not part of the madhab. It's an absolute absurdity. Okay. Also, the third point I will make is that this Mufti or whoever it is and those who follow him, so when they teach the Hanafi Madhab, how do they do it? Every single masala they teach, they make sure it's traced back to the first 500 years of the Madhab. And is that what they do? Even though it's a made-up rule, at least for the sake of consistency, they should be able to show us that yes, I'm saying this and I can trace it back to Imam Abu Hanifa or the Sahibain or, you know, the scholars from the first 500 years. Now, the other point I want to make here, and I make this with some reluctance because I don't want to give any kind of credibility to this rule that's just been invented, okay? But what I want to say is the message I received, the comment that I saw, they said it's not even mentioning al-Muhit al-Burhani. Well, yes, it is. So the research itself is inaccurate. It's not accurate. I saw it myself in al-Muhit al-Burhani. Now, he has discussed this masala. Now, they said there's no mention of it. Now, then the other thing I would say, and again, with reluctance, because I don't want to give too much credence to this made-up rule. So Ibn Abidin rahimallahu ta'ala, when he mentioned this masala, and people know that Ibn Abidin in the Hanafi Madhab, he's known for reliability of reference. He did relate it back to Zahir al-Riwayah. he said it is Zahir al-Riwayah. Okay. Imam al-Mawsil in Ikhtiyar, he said it is Zahir al-Riwayah. In Fatawa Hindiya, he also mentioned that it is Zahir al-Riwayah. Zahir al-Riwayah are the books of Imam Muhammad al-Shaybani narrating from Imam Abu Hanifa and others. Okay? So it goes back to the very source. Now, obviously, I accept that those are claims that they need to be verified. Fine, inshallah ta'ala. But the fact that you've got leading scholars saying that means it's almost inevitable that if you look long enough and hard enough, you will find it in those sources, inshallah ta'ala. Just have to look thoroughly enough. Now, having said all of that, once again, I will come back and I will say, I don't want to give credibility to a made up rule. And to say, yes, I'll find this for you, I'll look for it, I'll find it for you, I'll post it on the website, which I might end up doing. But my concern is this: I can't just react to every rule that somebody just makes up, every, presents this, oh, this is the principle in the madhab. Since when? Who said so? Okay, what we're going to do next, unless it's written by a scholar from the Middle East, we're not going to accept it. Who said so? Or unless it's written by a scholar from Central Asia, we're not going to accept it. Who said so? The madhab is the madhab. It's established. We follow it as it is. And the same people who are attacking this ruling will take from Imam al-Aini, and will take masail that are not found in the earlier books from Imam al-Aini. They'll take from Ibn Humam, rahimahullah ta'ala. They'll take from Imam al-Mawsili. They'll take from Fatawa Hindiya. They'll take from Radd al-Muhtar. They'll take from all of these books. And they won't ask. The reality is, this has become a sectarian issue. People have made clear errors regarding it. People have not presented the madhab as it is. And now it's time just to simply, be clear with people. Say, look, fine. The Hanafi Madhab for the start and end of Ramadan is global sighting. That is the sound opinion. We want to follow local sighting, we'll follow the Shafi'i Madhab. Now, obviously, if you're going to do that, that's fine. Be transparent and then follow the Shafi'i Madhab correctly.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. Just if you could comment on the comment that we've just had in relation to this. Brother's asking that, where is it? With respect to the earlier question, first 500 years is a significant period. I would understand if someone was just citing 100 years ago, but 500 is a really significant period.
Okay, I'm guessing that this person is live with us. Is that correct?
Yes, seems so.
Okay, what I will say to this person is, where is that the rule? Where in the Hanafi Madhab did they say this is a rule? And why is it 500 years? Why is it not 400 or 300 or 700 or 900? Why is it specifically 500? Who said that this is from the fundamentals of the Hanafi Madhab, or this is from the fatwa of the Hanafi Madhab? Where's that from?
I don't think it's the, sorry to cut you, Shaykh. I don't think it's the brother who made the original comment. It's another brother who's just saying, is it really the case that the accepted opinion in the Hanafi Madhab for the first 500 years was not global sighting?
Oh, no. What that particular individual was saying is that there's no mention of it. Now, because I would agree 100% if somebody was to say for the first thank you for clarifying this, okay, to the question and to yourself, Sayyidi Waqas, that if it was the case for the first 500 years of the madhab, they kept saying it's local sighting, local sighting, local sighting, local sighting, and then later scholars said no, it's global, that would be a strong argument, and that we can have a thorough discussion regarding. Now, that would be a solid argument, and that would be worth really investigating and speaking about in great detail. That's not what's being said here. They're saying it wasn't mentioned in the first 500 years. Have I responded now, Sayyidi?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, so this is really, really important. We need to distinguish between the two. I accept 100%. If it was the case that the scholars in the first 500 years were saying local, and then later on they changed to global, there would be a concern. And people could say that we're just going to stick to the earlier opinion. Fine, inshallah. That's not what's being said here. And it's not the reality. What they're saying here is that they didn't speak about it in the first 500 years, which, as I said, is obviously they're speaking about 500 years from Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala. This is not the case. This is not true. And Muhit al-Burhani, they mentioned specifically in the comment, it is discussed in al-Muhit al-Burhani. So first issue is just making up rules. Second issue is one of inaccuracy, that they haven't, even what they've said is inaccurate. Third issue is they will not uphold this themselves. The same people who are saying this, okay, let's have them record the durus of Hanafi fiqh when they teach Hanafi fiqh. Let's have 100, 200 lessons recorded, and let's scrutinize it and see if everything they're saying that can be exactly traced back. Simply not going to be the case.
Barakallah feek, Shaykh. Just another kind of question, similar to do with global sighting. Another comment came in that was saying that to have global sighting, you would need technology. And that's the only way it's possible to have global sighting. You know, you would need to rely on latest technology. Whereas with local sighting, you know, you can just use your eyes, as they said.
Okay, I think what they probably mean.
I can read out the comment. It said, "My point doesn't conflict with hadith, and if you feel it does, please provide references. It appears that you are shying away from providing any form of reference, and the audience can see this. So to explain, the hadith for sighting the moon applies whether you're in a jungle or in a city, whereby you can ascertain 29, 30 days of the month based on physical sighting. To implement the concept of global moon sighting, you need technology, and this in itself is not inclusive rule."
Okay. First of all, let's just quickly address this point. Look, when I release a video, very often it has a link in that video. And sometimes the link is to a more detailed video, and with even greater regularity, the link is to a written answer. The written answer has thorough referencing. Right now, I can, I'm not going to share my screen, but I'll read parts of it. The global sighting issue, okay? The global sighting answer on Islam Answers. First of all, I've cited the hadith from Ibn Majah, 1653, and it's a Sahih hadith. The Arabic is there, the English translation is there. Thereafter, I have the comment on this issue by Imam Ibn Abidin rahimahullah ta'ala. The Arabic is there, the translation is there, the referencing is there. So again, what my concern is not only regarding this issue, but issues that become very sectarian with people. What tends to happen, they don't really listen to what you're saying. They don't look at, the references you've provided. It's just a knee-jerk reaction that they just want to throw something at you. And that cannot be said with regards to what was put out, because references are right there. Just click on the link, it's right there in front of you. So in any case, khair. If the issue is one of global sighting, the hadith is in Ibn Majah. Let's provide the link again to this particular individual. And the commentary is from, or the commentary on the issue is from Imam Ibn Abidin rahimahullah ta'ala. And anybody who is open-minded and is actually looking can see that. As for the issue of requiring technology, okay, now let me address this issue, and if the person intended it from a different perspective, we can address that afterwards. Say to Waqas, you let me know. Now, so what often people say to me is that, oh, it requires technology because global sighting, let's say the moon was sighted in, back in the day, it was sighted in Algeria, for example. It would take a long, long time for that information to reach Khorasan, okay? So therefore, how does that work? Okay. Now, you'd require technology, because nowadays, because of the means of communication, we learn right away. Cited in Saudi, they announce it, we learn very, very quickly afterwards. Okay, so that's an argument that's often put. I'm going to respond to this from a number of perspectives. First of all, let me just say, if you have an issue with the concept of global sighting, you don't accept global sighting as a concept, let me explain something to you. Your issue is not with me as an individual, as a person. I'm not the first person to say global sighting is valid. Your issue, first and foremost, is with the Sahaba who held this opinion. Then it's with the Imams of the Hanafi, Maliki, Hanbali school as well. Okay? It's not a personal issue. When you say global sighting doesn't make sense, it's wrong, principally it's wrong. Don't delude yourself and think, oh, I'm just disagreeing with this one individual. That's the whole point of following a madhab. These are not my views. This is an interpretation of the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The hadith is fairly clear, as far as Hanafis are concerned, it's fairly clear. And you are differing with these three madhabs. And if you just want to be clear and transparent and say, as far as I'm concerned on this issue, Hanafis are wrong. Okay? Malikis are wrong, Hanbalis are wrong, okay, Shafis are right, that's up to you. That's what you want to do, that's up to you. I would advise you not to do that. I will advise you to respect all opinions, and say, but I'm more inclined towards the Shafi'i, I'm going to follow that. I would say, Bismillah, this is the way of Ahlul Sunnah. We respect valid difference of opinion, and we follow the opinion that, that we're convinced of, or the opinion of the madhab that we're upon. Now, you could do that, inshallah. But that's important. Let me start there. Secondly, this issue of requiring technology for the information to come to you, and the information will come to you late, and such things, it's addressed in the hadith. The hadith itself has specifically that situation where in Medina Sharif, the Sahaba and the Prophet ﷺ went out to sight the moon. They didn't sight it, so they were fasting. And then later on, information reached them that it's actually Eid today. The Prophet ﷺ accepted the moon sighting and told the Sahaba, we're going to pray Eid tomorrow now. Told them to end the fast and told them we're going to pray Eid Salah tomorrow now. So the hadith itself, explained the issue that if information comes to you late, then you make it up. You make up for what occurred. Then you come to the Hanafi works. The Hanafi works spoke about this in detail. They said that, yes, we follow global sighting. So if based on global sighting, later on you find out that you were incorrect in some way, you make an adjustment for it. It's not complicated. It's not difficult. If you open your mind and you actually, look for the answers, they're all there, inshallah. As I said, first of all, in the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Secondly, in the books of fiqh. And if somebody still disagrees, well, I don't agree with this, or it doesn't make sense to me, that's up to you. But just be honest with yourself and with the people around you and the people you're addressing and the people you're influencing. Be honest with yourself. You're not disagreeing with me as an individual. You're disagreeing with entire madhahib of Ahl Sunnah.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. Just a reminder to people, if you want to join us in studio, the link is in the description and also in the chat. We will give you priority. Just to bring in Shaykh Jamili now, inshallah. Shaykh, the other kind of end of the spectrum is obviously local sighting, right? And what people tend to, what I've read a lot and what people are saying is, just follow your local Islamic country, and they tend to go with Morocco. Is this local sighting? I mean, I know you've addressed it over and over again, but just once again, if you could address this, please.
Yeah, Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah wa ba'd. So let me just give a very brief answer. In the Shafi'i Madhab, Morocco is not a regional sighting for people in the UK. Let me say that 3 times. Morocco is not a regional sighting for UK. Morocco is not a regional sighting for the UK. I'll say it one more time. Morocco is not the regional sighting for the UK, according to the Madhab of Imam al-Shafi'i radiyallahu anhu. Okay, now, before I carry on, let me just give an example of something that recently I was aware of this before, but it became a lot more apparent this time. This Eid, what happened? Well, it's what I was seeing was a number of masajid or places in the UK. Even though I'm in Saudi Arabia, I'm still open to this type of things. Okay, they said the moon hasn't been sighted in the UK, therefore Eid is going to be on Saturday. And then another message from the same masajid came out and said, Morocco, the Moroccan authority or Awqaf have said that they haven't cited it, so therefore, here there's mixed messaging going on. For 1 minute, they're saying that they haven't cited it in the UK, so they seem to be following local citing here, okay? But then they're also saying that they are referencing the Moroccan Awqaf. Now, Allah bless the Moroccan. I have nothing against Morocco. I love Morocco. But yani, what has the Moroccan Awqaf got to do with this mas'ala? As a Shafi'i, it makes no sense to me. As a Shafi'i, it makes no sense to me. I would like to be told and advised by someone who does know about the Shafi'i Madhab to please correct me if I'm incorrect in my understanding that Morocco will not count as a regional sighting in the Shafi'i Madhab. So what I'm trying to get at here is that the masajid that are doing this, that are saying that it hasn't been cited, therefore it can't be on, therefore Eid is on Saturday, or in the UK, sorry, or the Moroccan Awqaf. Then they send another message and say the Moroccan Awqaf. So which opinion are you following? Are you following the Moroccan Awqaf, global sighting? Or are you following local sighting? And if you're following local sighting, are you saying that Morocco is a local sighting? Because if you are, you have created a 5th madhab, okay? Or you are considering yourself, you've got one or three people. You're either you're claiming to be a mujtahid of fatwa, which the scholars, they said that does not exist. They mentioned that Ibn Hajar al-Haytami, Imam al-Ramli, these great imams, Ibn Shaykh al-Islam Zakaria, were not mujtahid fatwa. So if you are mujtahid fatwa, that means you're greater than those imams, okay? They were not to that level. So either you're claiming to be mujtahid fatwa, and therefore you have reviewed the fatwa of the madhab, and you're now saying that local citing is now longer, it now extends beyond what the scholars in the past said. Therefore, you have now reviewed the madhab's position and changed it. That's the first option. If you are that person, mashallah, I'd love to meet that individual, okay, and take barakah and learn from that person. One. Number two, either I'm completely wrong and I would love to be corrected. Okay, the mas'ala, I've understood it wrong and someone needs to correct me, and I would love for someone to do that for me if it is the case. Or thirdly, and this is my biggest concern, that we are jumping from one or the other in order to avoid Saudi Arabia. Okay, and I'm just going to say it out as it is. Now we're going to come to this, I believe. Sidi Waqas may come to this later. I don't want to go into this mas'ala now, but there's a lot of issues with that statement in and of itself, which we can discuss later. So, simply, local citing, or let's use the word regional citing, in the Shafi'i Madhab, it's within a certain radius of distance we refer to, okay? And that distance, our scholars have generally mentioned, if it's about 120 kilometers or anything beyond that. For example, let me give an example. In Saudi Arabia, I live in the western region, Jeddah. The eastern region, Riyadh, is, according to the stronger opinion, 1 second, please. Fatima, روحي انت. Sorry, my daughter's here. يلا روحي فطوم.
MashaAllah, Sayyidi, she can join us.
She's within the regional sighting area. معلش. So, as I said, if in Saudi Arabia, for example, Riyadh is on the other side, and I on the eastern region, I'm in the western region. Even though it's under Saudi Arabia, one ruler, the moon sighting there, according to the stronger opinion, would not constitute a local sighting for me, or regional sighting for me. طيب. She was just crying. So it would not constitute as a regional sighting for me in here. So therefore, I have to do something different, which we can explain later. But I'm just giving that as an example. Local sighting in the UK, and people refer back to, I think, my answer on Islam Answers, you'll see it there. The parameters have been defined. And also the discussion between myself and Shaykh Noor, last video, I've also explained the parameters a lot more clearly there, inshallah. So, but Morocco is not a regional sighting in the UK, and therefore people who are claiming that this is the local sighting method of the Shafi'i Madhab are completely inaccurate. Okay, I'm not going to say that they are making things up, because astaghfirullah, that's a big claim to make. However, they are inaccurate in that claim, and they need to review their processes. Okay, because that is not a local sighting claim. Yes, we have local countries or closest Muslim country for certain things, and that is not, but this is not one of the mas'alas. For example, we have closest Muslim country if in your country you don't have what we call qut al-balad. Qut al-balad is like the staple food of the country to give zakat in. If you don't have a staple food, then you go to the closest country, okay, where there is a set staple food, and then you would do that as your staple food. If, for example, the prayer times don't enter, then we go to the closest place, closest region, closest locality whereby the prayer does, and then we adopt that time or the fraction of its time, etc. Okay, but this mas'ala, the scholars of ijtihad of the Shafi'i Madhab, all the way from Imam al-Shafi'i to now, till when the ijtihad ceased, none of them said anything about closest country. Okay, they set a region, and that region they defined by parameters of a distance, which extends all the way from 120 to about 32 minutes, according to 32 minutes in terms of how they used to define distance in the past as well. Also, I just want to add something to what Shaykh Noor mentioned, Sayyidi Waqas. Sorry for the length, but someone had the issue that they mentioned about communication. Okay, in the past, if people have watched Lord of the Rings, okay, they would have seen that when something happened, they lit something, a fire, Okay, like it's like they lit something and there would be a fire, and the one when it would be seen from one place to another, from horizon to horizon, they would light it and message would be passed on. We call them qanadil. They mentioned this in the books of fiqh, the ru'yat al-qanadil. Okay, where in the past when they light something and then messages would be sent, and these would establish that a message has been sent, that they have seen the moon, or it'll give them a message that they're expecting, basically. All right, they had various other methods. Yes, it might not be as quick as it is today, but they did have methods. Just to clarify that point. Wallahu a'lam.
Barakallah fiqh. We did have someone in the back. Unfortunately, they've just left us. I think it was Brother Ali. Brother, if you want to come back on, inshallah, we'll let you on. And I can see there's a lot of comments coming in, questions coming in. Once again, the priority will be given to people that are live with us in studio. So please do join us, inshallah. Shaykh, if we can now move on to the other topic, inshallah, which is about, this is a big one. Actually, before we go there, Shaykh, I think maybe address the Dhul Hijjah issue. You know, you put out a video saying, what would you do for Hajj if we are not to go with the global sighting? Sorry, if we're not to go with Saudi being reliable. We'll tackle that in a bit, but let's go with your analogy of Hajj. Someone said, you know, this analogy doesn't work because Hajj is contingent on the ruler facilitating it, and there's just no way to simply repeat it. Could you just comment on that, inshallah?
Again, unfortunately, again, I'm going to speak from the Hanafi perspective. This comment has got no relationship to what the fiqh books say. In the fiqh books, we find you have a situation where something is out of your hands or you're coerced to do something. There may be no sin upon you, but the act of ibadah will remain invalid. Just like, for example, come to fasting very quickly. If somebody was to force a person, you know, at gunpoint to eat something whilst fasting, the fast in the Hanafi Madhab is going to be nullified. Now, there's no sin on the person because he was coerced into it, but the fast is nullified because the fast is nullified by eating, and this person ate. So he's going to have to repeat the fast later on. They don't say that it's fine because it's out of your hands, your fast is fine. They don't say that. Now, if you are coerced into a situation, forced, pressured into a situation that renders your act of ibadah invalid, you have to repeat it. For example, you're at a masjid, okay, and they say we're going to pray Dhuhr prayer half an hour before it enters, and then we're going to lock the masjid and nobody else can pray here. You say, oh, I had nowhere else to pray. Or usually there are other places to pray. I was coerced to pray in the masjid, so even though I prayed early, it's fine, it's valid. It's not valid. You still have to pray your Dhuhr prayer. So the fact that circumstances have forced you to do something which renders your act of ibadah invalid doesn't mean now it's valid. It means there's no sin upon you. Okay, so if people were to say, well, you know, you got no other choice, fine, you got no other choice. Your Hajj is still invalid. Might be no sin upon you, but your Hajj is still invalid. And since with Dhul Hijjah, you're going to know 9 days in advance because Day of Arafah is the 9th of Dhul Hijjah. Okay, then these imams or sheikhs or maulanas who are telling people that the Saudi sighting is just completely invalid, they've got 9 days to tell people don't go to Hajj. They should, if they truly believe this, they should establish a system. They should tell people nobody go to Hajj until after the 1st of Dhul Hijjah. Let us check if their moon sighting is right or not, and then we'll tell you whether you go to Hajj or not. Okay? But once they're there, they should inform them that, look, whether you perform your Hajj or not is going to be irrelevant because it's going to be invalid. So once again, people are making comments, but it's got no relationship to the fiqh itself. The fiqh itself tells you if you do not perform the standing of Arafah, Wuquf Arafah, on the day of Arafah, it's going to be invalid. The day and the night, you have the day and the night for validity, it's going to be invalid. So you can argue whatever you like, I was coerced, this happened, that happened. Read the books of fiqh, your Hajj is going to be invalid. So this doesn't validate it if you say, no, we had no choice, the authorities forced us. No, your Hajj is still invalid. And the authorities didn't necessarily force you. If you truly believe their moon sighting is wrong, don't go. Wait. Let the 1st of Dhul Hijjah come in, and then you start making your preparations. Now, rather than going there and knowing, as far as you're concerned, knowing that there's a good chance that their entire Hajj is going to be invalid, but I'm going to go anyway. These things don't make sense. Now, and this is why I did feel of all of the videos, this one had the sharpest response to it, because this causes people the biggest issue. And it's the clearest example of a massive contradiction. Why? Because on the one hand, they're saying the sighting is completely wrong. And on the other hand, they are saying that your Hajj is fine. You can't have it both ways. Either you follow the Ahl Sunnah, which is to say global sighting is fine and local sighting is fine. Both are fine and both are followable. You follow the way of Ahl Sunnah. You respect valid differences of opinion. Okay, and fine, you want to follow local sighting. Nobody's forcing you, even if you're Hanafi, nobody's forcing you to follow global sighting. Okay, follow local sighting. Just stop attacking and considering invalid the Saudi sighting. And if you do consider it invalid, then remain steadfast on your opinion. And that which is the fruit of that opinion, make it clear to people. I will have far more respect, and it's not me personally. You know, generally people have more respect for principled individuals. You say something, you hold fast to it, and then you announce to people the repercussions of that as well. Now, but my advice is just follow the way of Ahl Sunnah, respect Hanafi, respect Shafi'i, respect global, respect local, stop attacking, stop making it a sectarian issue, and we won't have any of these problems. But you can't have it both ways. None of these arguments have a basis in fiqh, and anybody who believes they do, provide us references from the Hanafi Madhab, where it says, well, if the state is stopping you and you don't make it to the day of Arafah, your Hajj is still valid. Where does it say that?
Shukran. Okay, the next big topic, and we've had, I think majority of the comments were saying this, and even in the chat right now, I can see there's a lot of questions, which basically saying that can we trust Saudi? For example, we got a comment here saying, you know, people that accept global sighting, but from countries that they deem, quote, Sunni, and these won't pray behind the Imams of Haramain. Is there basis for discounting some countries? There's also another one saying, you know, if we follow global sighting, can we reject a sighting from an untrustworthy country, especially as Saudi over the years has made multiple errors and dubious sighting in the past? We have another one saying one of the conditions for accepting the sighting is that the source must be trustworthy. Al Saud have been immoral on major aspects of the zines, such as music concerts and beaches and so on and so forth. And they have handpicked governments and corrupt governments and so on and so forth. So it's saying clarify this contradiction. Again, like I said, if anyone wants to have a full-on discussion, please do join us in studio. We can't keep going back and forth, obviously, in the comments. So if you want to discuss, please do come on. But I'll hand it over to you, one of you, whoever wants to take it first, inshallah.
Let me start.
Bismillah, go on.
Better answering this because he lives there, okay? But what I will say, fine, no problem. You're rejecting Saudi. Let's take one of these arguments because there's sin in their country and they allow it unless they even promote it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Which Muslim country doesn't? Morocco. Okay, people want to follow Morocco. Morocco established Sharia law. And if they haven't established Sharia law, what's the ruling for that? So you can be salihin, yani athar, pure, pious, righteous people, and not enact in your country the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What does the Quran say about people who do not enact the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Which country are you going to give me where there's no fisq there? Now, firstly. Secondly, after the period of the Khulafa Rashideen, what did we have? Who were our leaders? The Bani Umayyah, first and foremost. What were the Bani Umayyah guilty of? What was Yazid guilty of? And then those who came after him as well. What were they guilty of? Did the Sahaba and the Tabi'een who were alive at that time, and then in the period of Bani al-Abbas, did they say that these are fusaq, so their qadis are invalid, so we're not going to accept the rulings from their qudat? Nobody does so. Why are we inventing new rules once again? This is something new that, okay, because the way this country behaves, we don't like it, and fine, it's justifiable not to like it. I'm not saying, not one day in my life have I said, this country, let's start with Saudi, is perfect. Everything they do is right. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. All I'm asking for is consistency. Okay, if you're going to point out the ills of that country, rightly so, it's within your rights, no problem, inshallah ta'ala. Point out the ills of this country, and this country, and this country, and this country. Now, and the point is, it's just worth mentioning that it's not only Saudi Arabia who said we sighted the moon. Afghanistan said it, Nigeria said it. These are the countries, to my knowledge, that announced it. So we don't need to have this massive focus on Saudi as well. What's wrong with Afghanistan? Well, they're backwards people. Okay, according to whom? According to who are they backwards? According to the West, according to Sharia, have they followed, have they implemented the laws of Sharia? Okay, what about Nigeria? Well, there's corruption there. Okay, any country you name, if people want to, they can find some fault in it and they can say, we're not going to follow. And then the countries that they themselves follow, we can find fault in them as well. It simply doesn't work like that. Nobody said, in the Hanafi Madhab, nobody said that the Qadi has to be in a country which is on the manhaj of the Khulafa Rashidin. Nobody said that. And he was an established Qadi, and he accepts the witness of people who come to him, and he makes qada that the moon has been sighted. That's it. That's what you're responsible for. But again, sometimes I do feel that people just don't think about what they're saying. And when was it the case in our history that we had truly upright leaders? Khulafa Rashidin, thereafter, there were always problems. And sometimes there were bigger problems, sometimes there were lesser problems, but there were always problems. So to expect some kind of perfection, it just doesn't make any sense. And again, final point before I hand over to Shaykh Mohammed, which country is perfect and which country is fine to follow? Which country implements the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala correctly? Point it out to me, please. No, I'm saying.
No, Jazakallah khair, Sayyidi. I think I'm just going to approach it from the the process. Let's just go through the process of how it was discussed, but let's just go through the process, because the process will hopefully illustrate to people the gravity of what we might be claiming, okay, about the other people, because we are claiming this about people, right? It's not these are individuals that have come in front of a panel of judges and have made testimony, okay? And when we say that people have made a false testimony, this is called shahadat az-zur, okay? And this the sin is major. This is not a joke. It's not. I mean, it's not a joke to say that someone has committed shahadat az-zur, has made a false testimony. Okay, so the claim that we are saying about people is quite detrimental to their honor. Okay, so we have to be careful what we're saying, and we're on the internet online here. We don't have humans in front of us to say that we can't see the repercussions of what we're saying. Okay, but we have to understand that these things are not minor things to be saying. So let's just go through the process. So the way I understand that it happens in Saudi Arabia, and I've been here now almost 6 years, that the way it's been going on, that it goes on, is they have a set of committees, and these committees have experts regarding astronomy and astronomical things, etc. They have telescopes, they have all these different things as well, okay? They have them all around the country. So they had some in Sudair, Tumair, various places scattered around the region. I don't know how many exactly, but they have some there. And they have an expert called Shaykh Abdullah Al-Khudair, okay? He's world-renowned for his expert in the science of moon sighting and astronomy and all that, okay? So they have them set in different places. What happens is on the Maghrib, they are ordered by the king, okay, or the high office of the king to go out on moon sight. Not just them, everybody in the country has actually been ordered to, if you can, go on moon sight, okay? So that's actually, mashallah, a very good thing to do, okay? For the king to order the people to go out. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to guide us and guide them. So people go out. They have telescopes, they have these type of things, but the testimony, then if there is a sighting, that testimony is done through, as I understand, you have to say, Ashhadu anni ra'aytul hilal. I bear witness that I have seen the new moon. When you make this testimony that I have seen this new moon, this goes to a judicial council, what they call the Mahkamatul Ulya, which is the High Court. That High Court has a set number of Islamic scholars, etc., that that are known for their knowledge, etc., whatever, however they selected them, but they are set scholars, and they will receive this. They will check it with people on their panel, whatever, and then it will be released from that high court. And if it's released from there, it's basically the king's order. Okay. For us to turn around and say this testimony is invalid, right? First, understand the gravity of what you've just said, right? Understand that if you were in front of the Prophet ﷺ and you said that, and you had no evidence for what you said, the Prophet ﷺ will probably get you whipped, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because you are now slandering somebody. And I don't want to bring the highness of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but I have to in this situation for people to understand the gravity of what's being said. Okay, so very important, before you make any claims about people or places or whatever, to be careful of what you're saying. I'm not a Saudi citizen. I'm not saying that it's perfect. I'm not saying anything like that. I understand history. I do understand history, the Ottomans, Saudi Arabia. I understand all of this, okay? But I am not going to now go and use that to start slandering a set of people. It's wrong. That's not what our religion has taught us, not in a fiqhi way or in any other way. That's the first thing, okay? So making a big claim from that perspective. Secondly, I think something that was mentioned here about they are unreliable because of the corrupt system or because they use technology or whatever. There's nothing wrong about using technology, okay? In the Shafi'i Madhab anyway, okay? Now, let's say they did use technology. In the statement, in the Shahada, in the testimony, did they say that they used technology? They said, "Anni ra'aytul hilal," that I saw it. If they saw it through an optical instruments, now over here, not naked eye. My question to the person that has asked this, it's a good question, but were you there when the testimony was made? And if the people send a CCD infrared on social media, does that mean that that's what was used for testimony? Okay, is that what it means? You see now how messy it gets, because I absolutely agree that if the person made a testimony and they said that they saw the moon, but they actually saw it as an optical instrument, then this is a problem. Okay, but is that what was said? This is the question. I don't know that. I don't think any of us will find that out. But what we do know is that we have a set of Muslims that have been entrusted with this, that the king and the higher authorities, whatever they've chosen them, they are Muslims, okay, and it has come through the king's high office. Therefore, we trust. It's on them. At the end, if they've done something different, well, inshallah they haven't, it's on them. Okay? It's not on me. Am I obliged to go and find this information out? No. I don't believe that. I have no reason to think otherwise currently. Okay? But the point being is that before we start making these claims, be very careful with what you're saying. Because the gravity of what's being said, you will be taken into account by Allah and His Messenger on the Day of Judgment for saying that. Even if you're not saying it to a person in front of them. Like me and Shaykh Noor are here now on the internet. For you to say, oh, what they have said is completely wrong, their testimony is invalid, that's major. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sayyidi Shaykh Noor. For you to even say a statement, even if you're not in front of the person, isn't that grave, Sayyidi? It's a grave thing to say in front of people. It's a grave thing to say. It's major. And that's why I want people to be careful with these type of statements. If you don't trust a place because you have your real evidence and genuine reasons, then that's fine. You have your reasons. You are happy to stand in front of Allah and His Messenger and give your reasoning because you think that your reasoning is valid and state, and therefore, because of that, you're not going to follow this particular country, wherever that country is going to be. Fine. But make that clear to people. Do not say to people, for example, I'm following the local sighting. When you're clearly doing global sighting, but you're doing it because of something else. If you're doing it because of something else, then you need to clarify what that something else is, so other people are aware, okay? And if they are aware and you have real evidence, not things about dubious sightings that was mentioned here. I am still waiting to hear about these dubious sightings. A lot of these were lies that were made about the country. Even the country themselves officially made a clear statement and said, people have said that we gave this much kafara or whatever. This is completely a set of lies. Okay, so either the people are lying or they're lying, right? You see a mess that we're coming into now. You see, it's a big mess, and this is not something that we have been commanded. This is not something that we've been commanded to go into this much detail about. It's for myself and others. It's as simple as this: that a ruling was made, a testimony was made in front of a judicial court that has been set by the king, the highest authority in the country, and therefore through that the rule was made. If you're a Hanafi, from what Shaykh Noorud-deen, and also something else, before I mention that, the reason why Saudi Arabia comes up all the time first is because that's the closest, one of the closest east to the east to us. So they'll naturally see it, if they see it, quicker before people in other places. It just happens like that because of the sun, and they're just quicker. It just happens, it quickly comes out like that. And then before people in other countries like Indonesia, whatever it may be. All right, so we need to be careful with that statement. To this day, I'm still to hear a reason why to negate the testimony of the people in the High Judicial Court. I don't know who they are, but to negate that, I have no reason to negate it. I'm here to hear valid or genuine reason. And if there is a valid, genuine reason that has evidence, that is something that I could take into consideration for myself. But till now, I haven't seen that. Wallahu a'lam. That's my part to it, Sayyidi. I don't know if there's anything I've missed.
No,
I
barakallah
just want
fiqh.
to pick up on one thing because I saw it flash up on one of the comments. It said that's why the Sunni scholars reject them. Just a little bit on this, inshallah ta'ala. You say the Sunni scholars, what's understood from that is all Sunni scholars, or certainly the majority of Sunni scholars, because otherwise one would say some Sunni scholars. So is it the case that I should say all, or the vast majority of Sunni scholars reject the Saudi sighting? Not to my knowledge. I spent years in Damascus, and to my knowledge, every year they ended up following the Saudi sighting. Are they not Sunni scholars, the scholars of Damascus? And by the way, although the government was Shi'i, the responsibility to establish the beginning and end of Eid, of Ramadan and then Eid al-Fitr, Eid al-Adha, this was left to the Sunni scholars. Every year I was there, from what I understood, is they were actually following the Saudis' sighting. So are they not Sunni? Okay. All of these other Arab countries that we have that do end up following the Saudi sighting, are they not Sunni? Who is Sunni then? A Sunni that just the people that you agree with, or Sunni is restricted to the subcontinent? How does this system work? And also, again, speaking about my personal experience, when I came back from Damascus or from Yemen, when I came back to settle back in the UK, initially, every beginning of Ramadan, end of Ramadan, and even for Eid al-Adha, I used to speak to, in particular, Sheikh Samir al-Nas, one of my teachers from Damascus. Okay, and with such consistency, he used to say to me that it's fine, follow their sighting, it's fine. This is global sighting, it's fine. They're the first ones to announce it, it's fine. I called him, initially every beginning of Ramadan, end of Ramadan, beginning of Dhul Hijjah. To the extent, Allah Most High bless him, was very patient with me. I kept asking him the same question each time with slight variances. I said, okay, look, Sayyidi, people are saying it's not sound because of this, because of astronomical calculations. What do you say? Okay. With such consistency, he was telling me to follow it, that I stopped asking him. After a couple of years, I stopped asking him because it was just the same every single time now. So, and that's just a representation of those scholars there. They were all the same with regards to this, all the ones I knew. And I spoke to other scholars as well. So are they not Sunni scholars? So I don't understand when people make these huge blanket statements, the Sunni scholars reject it. Who exactly are they referring to? And are the Sunnis this tiny little minority that you are aware of? And if that's the case, doesn't that contradict the notion of the Sunnis, the Ahl Sunnah, being rightly guided? Because part of being rightly guided is to be the majority in the mainstream. And it's one of the problems with sectarianism. People are so sectarian about things, they end up considering everybody wrong apart from their little group, and then they actually contradict the definition of the rightly guided people who are the Jama'ah, who are supposed to be the majority. Now, sorry, let's carry on with other comments.
Jazakallah khair. I think I'd just like to add also the fact that every year it's Saudi that gets kind of picked on, but every year it's actual multiple countries that say it. and it's almost like, oh, only Saudi cited it, and therefore it's wrong. And it's like, okay, well, what about the rest of the countries? Are they also colluding with Saudi or something? Are they getting paid?
Yeah.
What's going on here?
We tend to announce the ones that have clarified it's an independent sighting, because there are so many countries that don't Eid on Friday. But okay, fine, with many of them you assume, or they may indicate they follow the Saudi sighting. We tend to highlight the ones who are clear that they have their independent sighting. But every year there's there's different countries who do that, and they're rubbished. Okay, so Afghanistan done it this year, they're rubbish as well. Okay, as far as these people are concerned, the people are just completely against it. And Nigeria, they're unreliable now as well. Just a few years ago, the people who rubbished the Saudi sighting ended up celebrating Eid on the same day based on the Nigerian sighting. I remember it very, very clearly, because it was quite late at night that they finally announced it. Okay, and then everybody ended up doing Eid on the same day. It was based on the Nigerian sighting. Now it's not good enough. That time it was good enough. Now it's not good enough. Now, there are so many contradictions here. Then people say, oh, we follow Morocco. The same people who say we follow Morocco, certainly as they say South Africa cited it, let's go. South Africa, on what basis? Okay, it just jumps around. This is why I keep calling people back to the madhab. Just go back to the madhab, follow something sound. You don't need to get yourself into this mess. Okay, last year, if I'm not mistaken, Mauritania as well. So what, Mauritania are not Sunni either. Okay, and they're not reliable as well. They're lying. They're fabricating. How many Muslim countries, how many Muslim communities are we going to exclude from Ahl Sunnah? Exclude from, well, not only exclude from piety, any kind of piety, but they are all fasiq, and they're all the people of Shahadat al-Zur. They're just fabricating testimony. Who are we going to do with this with? As I said regarding the fiqh issue earlier, when you disagreeing with global sighting, don't delude yourself, not disagreeing with this particular individual. That's meaningless. You can disagree with me all day long. You are disagreeing with the entirety of the Hanafi Madhab. Now, Wallahu ta'ala.
Sorry, Sid, you just made me laugh. A comment at the end. I understand your visa. Maybe Shaykh Noor doesn't have a visa. I have the visa.
Yeah, just to respond to the brother, bro, please do join us. There's no point having a back and forth in the comments. I mean, you clearly have
I've had a read, Sadie. So basically, the brother's asking some questions about astronomical data. Again, I'll leave it for Shaykh Noor to answer that. In the Shafi'i school, astronomical calculations and data could be used to negate a testimony. Yes, it absolutely could do. However, that astronomical data must be reach the level of two things. Number one, it must be unequivocal, in the sense what we call qat'i, absolute. And the type, from my discussions with some experts, the things that are absolute to them are calculations that, for example, the sun set, something about the moon was below the horizon before the sun was set at that particular place. That's, for example, you can't deny that. But they even mentioned depending on how much it was below the horizon, the moon. If it was very much below the horizon, then they say, for example, because of the light refraction, etc., there still could be a possibility. But if it's beyond a certain point, then we would say it's impossible, absolutely, across all. No astronomer, no science expert in astronomy will tell you otherwise. If it gets to this point where we have absolute evidence, clear 100%, okay, that the calculations say it was impossible for it to have been seen at that place, at that time, under those conditions, and there are no factors, regardless of the factors, okay, regardless of any other factors that might get involved and may change their opinion, but regardless of the factors, it is impossible. And you get a number of experts that reach the level of tawatur, which is a good number, then and only then can the judge cancel that testimony. Then and only then, in the Shafi'i school. Okay? That's the Shafi'i Madhab. Yeah. Sorry, Sadie, but just for people to be aware, those maps that get passed around on the internet, they are not unequivocal. They are not absolute. Meaning, you will send that to a few people, some experts, and they will tell you that yes, at this region it would be impossible because the moon is way below the horizon. But at this region where it says impossible, no, it depends on the factors. You will find that very clearly. So please be careful of these maps. I'm not going against the science. I love the science, but be aware of what you're passing around. Okay, the word impossible is a big term. That's the Shafi'i school. Sayyidi Shaykh Noor.
Shaykh, before you go on, I don't think it's fair for the audience if we just address this brother's comments, because he's coming at the end. Like I said, we give priority to him if he joins us backstage in the studio.
He told me my visa is going to be taken. Don't worry, my visa is not going to be taken.
It's okay.
Barakallah feekum, Sayyidi.
It's not fair on the other people that have asked a question. So if we can keep it in order, like I said, we'll give him priority if he joins us in the studio. But other than that, let's keep it in order, Shaykh.
Come on. Tell us about the visas, please.
Okay, so let's start with some of the questions that have come in. Brother Mohammed Usman, he's asked, he said that some of the masjids in the UK tend to quote local scholars or books written in the last 100 to 200 years when choosing a local country for their moon sighting. It is assumed that these scholars or books have derive their rulings to this from traditional, universally accepted texts in the Hanafi Madhab, but I am not sure if this is the reality. Can you cite me several universally accepted scholars' texts, please? I shall then ask them for the recent scholars or books to present their primary sources for being allowed to take the moon from a local country. I think we can just answer that simply by saying we've got texts on the website, right, Shaykh?
Yeah, we've got a number of them. I can add to them, inshallah. I just mentioned some of them earlier, but what I tend to do in the answers on the website, it's not an exhaustive list. I tend to give, 1, 2, 3, 4. I've started to provide even more references now, but in the past I was reluctant because, I feared that the answer would be too long. So all I would say, they are on the website. I may mention a few others just quickly now. They are on the website. And if you want more references, those can be provided. If you ever want more than what's present, just get in touch, inshallah. Those can be provided. But I mentioned them earlier. Fatawa Hindiya spoke about it. Imam Al-Aini spoke about it. Imam Ibn Humam spoke about it. Imam Ibn Humam, I think, has been quoted. Ibn Abidin, rahimahullah ta'ala, spoke about it. Imam Al-Mawsili spoke about it, and many, many, many others besides. These are the classical scholars that spoke about it, and they told us that the sound opinion in the Hanafi Madhab is global sighting.
Jazakallah khair. Okay, the next one from the same brother, he said, if I understood correctly, Shaykh Noorud-deen suspects some masjids follow local sighting and a valid opinion in the Shafi'i Madhab. These must generally quote local countries instead of regions in the UK, though. To what extent does the Shafi'i Madhab allow sign? Oh, sorry, that's a different one. So if you could just generally quote.
Yeah, let me comment, because essentially this is, Shaykh Mohammed has also already explained what local sighting means, not only in this video, in numerous videos. Usually when I mention people who are following, or masajid or institutions that are following local sighting, it's absolutely fine. I have no issue with it whatsoever. I respect it. It's the Shafi'i Madhab, alhamdulillah. It's a blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we have the ikhtilaf, and it's a blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that this ikhtilaf goes all the way back to the Sahaba. That's greater still, mashallah. Okay, I have no issue with it. I will respect it, absolutely. But very often I do caveat that with they have to follow it correctly. Now, I cannot go into the details of the Shafi'i Madhab. That's why we have Shaykh Mohammed here with us. He can go into it. So they have to be followed correctly. What I will say is that even with people who are following the wrong principle, sometimes they end up aligning with something which is valid. Okay, so there I might condemn the methodology or criticize it, but ultimately they ended up right. Let me give you a clear example. Most years, Saudi sighting aligns with global sighting. So even though I regularly say in my classes and on these online sessions is where I regularly say, following Saudi is not correct. You cannot simply follow Saudi. That is not a sound principle. I've said it repeatedly, and I'll say it again. You cannot simply follow Saudi. That is not global sighting. But usually, it didn't happen last year. Last year, as I mentioned before, I ended up celebrating the day before the Saudi sighting because it was cited elsewhere and Saudi didn't cite it. Okay, but usually it does align with global sighting. So although I might say to masajid that are saying we follow Saudi, I may say to them, don't follow Saudi. It's wrong principally. But most of the time, what ends up happening, that aligns with global sighting anyway. So that fasting and their Eid day ends up being correct. Now, So I'm not saying they're right, they should follow the right methodology, but since it ends up aligning with something that's sound, then fine. So even like this now, when they say, oh, we follow Morocco, we follow Morocco, if it ends up aligning with local sighting in the UK, then khair, inshallah. The methodology is wrong, but the result ended up being fine. It's not, I'm not saying it's not a problem, but it ended up being fine. Now, so that's the point. As long as it ends up being fine, then I'm not going to say that Eid was on the wrong day, but I will say that follow the correct methodology.
I think this one, Shaykh Jamili, you've already answered, right? You know, to what extent does the Shafi'i Madhab allow? Yep. And the second answer, what are the clear proofs and texts from Hanafi that science has no role in this? I believe you also have an answer on this as well, Shaykhi, on the website. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. Why astronomical calculations are not used? Why? Because as far as the Hanafi are concerned, the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "We are an unlettered ummah. We do not write nor use astronomical calculations. A month is like this, as a month, and a month is like this." The Hanafis took this literally. This is in Bukhari 1913. The Hanafis took it literally. And they said that's it. It means that we cannot use calculations. So when it comes to moon sighting, calculation has no role to play. And the reference in terms of commentary, it's also been provided. That's how the Hanafis understood the hadith. So that's why we don't use it. We're not anti-science for most things in life, and even religious issues. We will use science. As far as we're concerned, as Hanafis, and I've been informed, Malikis and Hanbalis are more or less the same as us. As far as we're concerned, the hadith is giving us an exception from the general rule. We're going to follow the hadith.
Okay, let's move on. The answer to the brother, that is on the website, so you can have a look, inshallah, and read for yourself. I think this one, Shaykh Jamili, you've kind of addressed as well, that the fact that just because there's an image going around saying that, you know, they use some sort of infrared, CCD infrared, doesn't mean that that's the testimony that was given. But Shaykh, if you, Shaykh Noorud-deen, if you could just quickly comment on whether you're allowed to use optical instruments in the Hanafi Madhab.
If one uses them just to see the moon, essentially to find it, and then thereafter looks with one's eye, there's no issue to begin with. Whereas if a person cannot see it with the naked eye and can only see it through these means, then to my knowledge, I haven't seen this discussed in authoritative works of the Hanafi Madhab. And what I've come across with contemporary scholars is a difference of opinion. Some will say it's fine, there's no problem with it. Others will say, well, it should be naked eye. So I don't feel that there's a clear-cut answer in the Hanafi Madhab with regards to only being visible through these instruments. I don't believe there's a clear-cut answer. But if it's located through those instruments and then sighted with the naked eye, you have no problem to begin with. And once again, I apologize, but there are so many contradictions in this discussion. It's mind-blowing that the same people who will say, oh, they're using instruments, often those very same people will say, oh, some Bedouin in the desert saw it. We're going to rely on some Bedouin in the desert. Why not? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did rely. But also, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Muhammad also, you can't have it both ways. It's not they're using all of these high-tech instruments and then there was some Bedouin who in the desert who saw it. And which one is it?
Shukran. Okay, let's move on. We'll skip some of this. There's an unrelated question, inshallah. We'll leave that to the end if we have time. A question for Shaykh Jamili. If a family member tells me that they sighted the hilal, is it incumbent on me to begin my Ramadan fast the next day, even if it's a child, woman, fasik, untrustworthy, etc.?
Okay, so if you're not, if this is based on basically someone somewhere in the UK or something like that, which is not under Muslim rule, okay. If you're in a Muslim country, then if you sighted the moon, then you should go to the Muslim courts and provide your testimony. The more they have, the better it is for them, okay, so that they can make it a general ruling, all right, for everybody. But if you haven't sighted, you're not in a Muslim country, then what you would do is basically it becomes individualized. So for that family member who saw it, it's obligatory on them to begin their Ramadan the next day. They have to, okay. As for everybody else, if your family member has told you, whether it's a woman, it can be a woman, because here it requires for it to be a riwayah, and even the shahada doesn't need to be, because not shahada, they're not pairing a testimony to you. They don't need to come and say to you, I have witnessed, because you're not a judge, okay? So all they need to do is just, if you believe them, then you begin your Ramadan. If they said to you, I saw the hilal, oh, you saw it, okay. If you believe them, you can start fasting the next day. If you don't believe them, you don't have to start fasting the next day. So it depends on your beliefs. There's none of these, all this issue about child, woman, fasiq, unworthy, all of that is not part of this. Okay, that is those characteristics or qualities have significance when it comes to testimony, but not here. This is not a testimony. This is just they've seen it and they want to let you know. If you believe them, fine, go with it. If you don't believe them, you don't have to follow.
Jazakallah khair. Okay, next one for Shaykh Noorud-deen. So his brother says, Shaykh Noorud-deen, why do you ignore the rules of the Ahnaf regarding the witnesses has to reach the Tawatur if the sky is clear? Imam Shaybani says it has to be 50 witnesses. None of these conditions are being met.
I don't ignore this. First of all, how do you know none of these conditions are being met? Okay, but that's I'll go into some detail, but bear in mind that's guidance for whom? For the Qadi. That's for the Qadi. The Qadi is told he needs this many witnesses, he needs this many witnesses, but nothing to do with us. What we're told, if you have a qada that takes place, okay, then we have to go by it. That is guidance for the Qadi himself. And what I would advise the brother who feels I'm ignoring the rules of the Hanafi Madhab, read the Risala of Ibn Abidin, read the Hashiyah as well, but also if you want more detail, read the Risala of Ibn Abidin, rahimahullah ta'ala, where he mentions even when the sky is clear, you have a sound opinion that allows 2 witnesses. Yes, fine, and most of the mutun, when they discuss this issue, basic text, they do speak about, you know, having jam'un ghafir, okay, a large group of people. Fine, no problem, inshallah ta'ala. But if you're going to, you know, discuss something like this, and especially if you're looking to negate qada, that's no small thing. When a qadi gives a decree, for you to negate it, you need, you know, real solid proof on your side. Ibn Abidin spoke about this issue. He spoke about a sound opinion which allows 2 as well. Okay, and he even spoke about situations where even when the sky is clear, you can have 1. Now, once again, I understand that this is not mentioned in the basic text of the madhab. Now, but when you delve into issues in more detail, which you should, especially if you're going to negate qada, which you should, because you cannot reject qada of a qadi, not even another qadi in the Hanafi Madhab cannot reject the qada of a qadi unless he's gone against everything that has a basis. Only then can you, if he's gone against ijma, essentially, then you can say, yes, overruled. Other than that, you cannot overrule a qadi. Now, so the point is, no, I'm not disregarding any of these rules. What I'm saying is that, first and foremost, you don't know if the qada was given based on 50 witnesses or 100 witnesses or 1 witness. You don't know that. I don't know that. And it's not for us to speculate, and it's not of our interest anyway. What we're told is when the qada is given, you follow it. That's what we're told. For the qadi, yes. For the qadi himself, for him to think, hold on a minute, I've only got 2 witnesses here. Should I make the qada or not? Am I going to follow the opinion of Jama' Ghafir that I need a very large body? Or am I going to follow the opinion that, 2 suffice? That's for the qadi. Now, that's for him to do so. Whereas for us, as long as he's giving qada based on sighting, he says that testimony was given to me, was brought to me regarding sighting, and I have approved it, that's enough. You do your job, the qadi does his job. If he does it wrong, his affairs with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You do it wrong, your affairs with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And at the moment, I would say many people are doing it wrong. Because your job is to accept the qada of the qadi and fast or end the fast according to it.
Okay, it looks like we've addressed half of the brother's problem because he's saying it's not all about corruption. Now it's about the ulama who are chosen by the government are non-Sunnis. They are Wahabi by definitions. Shaykh, do you see the Wahhabis as Sunnis? Please answer. So, and just on the same vein, Saudi have Wahhabi ulama. If you see Wahhabi as Sunni, fair enough, follow them. We Sunnis do not see Wahhabis as Sunni. We are consistent in our definition of Sunni Islam. No. Who wants to take that one?
Let's start with Shaykh Mohammed.
Okay, so
in a better place.
Alhamdulillah, it looks like we've answered the first half about, they've got corruption in the land. So let's see if we can address this, inshallah.
The issue of again, we are diverging, but Wahhabism and how whether they're connected to Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah or not. The previous going back when firstly Wahhabism came out, going back over about 100 years ago, just under 100 years ago. How it emerged, and scholars at that time clearly had major issues, okay, with regards to it. And obviously, yes, the Wahhabism that if the form of, if you want, I don't like using the word, but that anybody who calls to against the tenets of faith or aspects that go against the aqidah of tahawiyah, you want to call it, okay, such as if they perform something called tajseem, anthropomorphism, giving figure to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in other, you know, which is not permitted. This type of things are against the way of Sunni Islam, and that would not be considered as being Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. However, for me to give a blanket statement today and say that everybody who is, because many people just take on the term, the name, and they don't even understand what they are following, okay? But the principle is that obviously the early, when it first emerged, there was some there is major issues with regards to their ways, okay? So I would definitely say that a lot of their ways were not in line with Sunni Islam, okay, as it emerged. Now, as it's come about, now again, the people that in our age today that people say that it's Wahhabism, etc., I think it's kind of died out, to be honest with you. In my opinion, Allahu Alam, there are people who don't follow four madhabs. There are people who follow one of the madhabs, but maybe pick and choose, okay? And in Aqidah, they're not really aware of Aqidah, okay, to the right extent, to the level that they need to be aware of. So my brief answer would be, anybody goes against the points of Aqidah Tahawiyah that are clearly aligned by Imam al-Tahawi rahimahullah ta'ala in that sense, then they will be either one or two faults. They'll either be, depending on what they're disagreeing with, it could form into the area of kufr wa na'udhu billah, or at least will be in Ahlul Bid'ah. Nasallahu salam al-afiyah.
Okay, a couple of things I would like to raise. Once again, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I've already spoken about it. What does us Sunnis mean? Okay, who are these Sunnis that are acceptable Sunnis with you? Because I've given many examples, my own experience in Damascus, many of the Muslim countries that do follow the Saudi sighting. So are they not Sunni? That's my question. So are the Sunnis just this particular group from this particular place that you know and you are aware of? Those are Sunnis, nobody else is Sunni. Because most of the countries that most Muslims, to my knowledge, consider to be part of Ahlul Sunnah, many of the countries, they follow the Saudi sighting. They've got no issue with it. Now, firstly. Secondly, you said, we've got our definition of Ahlul Sunnah and we're consistent with it. Please provide that definition and please source it for me. Where is your definition from? Okay, I don't want it from some contemporary scholar. Okay, I want it from a classical scholar. With contemporaries, you'll have Salafis giving you one definition of Ahlul Sunnah. Okay, Sufis giving you a different one. The Ubandis giving you a different one. But I'm not interested in that. Give me a thorough definition of Ahlul Sunnah from the classical scholars of Islam, and then we can have some discussion with regards to it. Now, so as for what Shaykh Mohammed said, I completely agree. They have evolved as a group. Okay, they are far less extreme than they once were, and this is why, in my experience, what I see today is contemporary leading Hanafi scholars differing over them. Amongst them, one of my own teachers, Shaykh Samir al-Nas, I've heard him repeatedly say that they are part of Ahlul Sunnah. Okay, there are also credible contemporary scholars who will say they are not. Okay? But it's not so clear-cut and categorical. And just the very fact that you have leading scholars differing over them being Sunni or not shows you that there's no clear violation of an established principle of Ahlul Sunnah. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. But one thing I will say, last thing I will say regarding this, I respect the brother for his honesty and his transparency. At least he is telling you that, for me, it's a sectarian issue. For me, they are not from the mainstream. They are this other group, and that's why I don't accept them. Fine. At least the brother's being transparent. Thank you for doing that. Then my follow-up question is, what about Afghanistan? What about Nigeria? And what about in previous years? What about Mauritania? Why weren't those sightings followed?
Okay, next one. Where are we? Sorry, 1 second. I just lost where we were.
Did that same brother post a follow-up?
He said it's not sectarian, it's that they have different methodology.
Yeah, essentially what you're saying is that they are outside of Ahlul Sunnah. They are a sect outside of Ahlul Sunnah.
Okay, next one. Okay, apparently we have someone who wants to join. 1 second. Let's see. Assalamu alaikum. Is that Jovan?
Oh, oops.
Okay, no, it's just kid, I think. Let's move on. What do we have next? Where were we? Sorry, guys, I've lost my train of thought. There we are. Okay. Assalamu alaikum. I hope you're both well. Sheikh, if the Ahnaf books stay global as preference, then why is local citing accepted?
It's accepted, I mean, by whom? By me? Because it's the Shafi'i opinion. Of course I'm going to accept the Shafi'i opinion. I'm going to accept Shafi'i, Maliki, and Hanbali opinions. As long as they're sound opinions that madhab, I'm going to accept them. But I'm going to present the reality as it is. The strongest opinion in the Hanafi Madhab is global. And it seems, as Shaykh Mohammed has repeatedly told us, local citing or regional citing is the sound opinion in the Shafi'i Madhab. Of course I'm going to respect it. Why wouldn't I?
Sure. I think Shaykh Jamili, you've already addressed the astronomical data issue, whether it can be cited or not.
I just want to say one thing about the astronomical data issue, because this year it was even clearer, especially for us here in the UK. I've repeatedly said that the astronomers are not united on this issue. These moon sighting charts that are usually posted on moonsighting.com and then spread around by people, they're predictions, first of all. That's important to bear in mind. Okay, but secondly, fine, they said that it wasn't possible to see it on Friday. Okay, we had a group here, the Minhaj al-Quran group, that announced early on. I made a video against what they done, but they announced a week in advance that Eid is going to be next Friday. They announced that based on astronomical calculations. So they used calculations that dictated it was on Friday. Turkey also used astronomical calculations. They said Friday. Okay, the Saudi al-Qura calendar also said Friday, although the difference between Saudi and Turkey, Saudi actually go out and cite, and the Saudis will contradict their calendar. Anybody who doesn't believe it, just follow it. Again, you observe it yourself, okay? The calendar says this, but they've gone against it based on citing. That's happened regularly. Now, in any case, but the calculations dictated Friday anyway. So you have, at least 3 sources here using astronomical data that's saying it's Friday, and then you have others saying it's Saturday. I'm no astronomer. I'm not going to argue with them. But all I'm saying is just like the Sunni thing has been, presented as a blanket multiple times now, okay? The Sunnis this, the Sunnis this, the Sunnis this. People are doing the same thing with the astronomers. The astronomers this, the astronomers, which astronomers? Don't pretend that all astronomers are agreed on these issues.
Okay, next one. Why do Ahnaf countries like Indo-Pak, Bangladesh, etc. all follow local citing? I don't know.
I don't. Go ahead, Shaykh.
No, one of you want to take that, Bismillah.
Yeah. Ultimately, just because a particular country does this or that, it doesn't mean that that's the representation of the Hanafi Madhab. Any person who wants to say that the Hanafi opinion is not global citing, don't cite countries to me, cite authoritative books to me, please. Not just to me, to any person of knowledge, cite books, okay? Because otherwise, I will say to you, okay, look, in Turkey, they have this particular practice and they are Hanafi, so that must be part of the Hanafi Madhab as well. Okay, how many things do they do in the subcontinent that are contrary to the Hanafi Madhab, yet you have large groups of scholars that agree with it, that go with it. So I'm going to cite that as a proof. It's not a proof. Okay, proof is Quran and Sunnah, and then the interpretation of Quran and Sunnah is through classical scholars. In fiqh, it's the madhabs. Okay, so the person right at the beginning, the person who attempted to use that, I'm sorry, but was completely wrong. And said first this is why I have confidence. At this point, I'm always going to be open to things, okay? But at this point, I have confidence that there's no strong argument for local citing being the sound opinion in the Hanafi Madhab, because the arguments that are put forth don't follow the methodology. Okay, if somebody said, look, okay, fine, you quoted this from the Hashiyah of Ibn Abidin, look at this in the Hashiyah of Ibn Abidin. You quoted this, but look at Umdatul Qari. You quoted this, but look at Fath al-Qadir, look at Bada'i al-Sana'i, look at Jami' al-Saghir. Okay, that hasn't been done. People aren't doing that. They're just inventing new rules. Okay, it's not in the first 500 years. What's that got to do with anything? Okay, look at these countries. What's that got to do with anything? If you have proof, provide the proof. And if I'm wrong, it's not just me. Okay, personally, I'm saying this. I'm quoting to you references. I'm quoting to you even current contemporary scholars as well. And if it's wrong, it's wrong. But prove it. Use a source. Don't use countries. Countries don't work. And last point regarding this. Hanafis are well within their rights to follow local citing according to Shafi'i Madhab. It is not haram for them to do so, but they should just be more transparent regarding it.
On a light-hearted note, I hope both of your visas are okay. So let's move on, inshallah. I just want to quickly tackle this because I think you've already spoken about whether they're part of Ahlul Sunnah or not. But you know, if we're saying, oh, well, we can't trust Saudi because they're not, let's just go with it and say, okay, they're not Ahlul Sunnah. What are we going to say? Now, Afghanistan's not part of Ahlul Sunnah. Nigeria isn't part of it. I mean, then what, are you going to have a few select countries that you feel are part of Ahlul Sunnah? Or I don't know how that's going to work, inshallah.
And if Nigeria are not, why were they followed a few years ago?
Well, yeah.
What about Mauritania?
Why is the focus just Saudi? It's like, oh, only Saudi cited it or something. But every year, even last year, you know, there's multiple countries that cited it. But yeah, let's move on from that one, inshallah. 1 second. Next one, I think, is saying, I may have missed this, but if the moon has been sighted in a Muslim country and all masjid in my local community all celebrate Eid the day after, what are we required to do? I guess he's saying if you follow global.
Yeah, that sounds a bit, yeah.
Global sighting and your local community is following local. If you're in a Muslim country, we've spoken about this in previous sessions as well. If you're in a Muslim country and the Hakim, the head of state, says we're doing Eid on this particular day, as long as his position is valid in one of the four madhabs, you must follow that. Here we don't have that situation. Here, you know, since we have no Hakim, no Muslim head of state, then, you know, everybody decides for themselves essentially. So, but what I would say is, if you want to make your life easier, because everybody in your locality is, let's say, hopefully they're doing regional sighting or local sighting correctly, feel free to switch to that. There's no issue. I'm not saying you have to stick to the Hanafi ruling. There's no issue. As long as they're doing local or regional sighting right, follow it, no problem, if you so choose. And if you choose to just stick to global sighting, nobody should have a problem with it. But every masjid is doing this. It doesn't matter. I have the right. Now, there's no Hakim here decreeing upon us, so I'm going to follow global. My advice may well be, if the local sighting is dictating the next day and it's being done right, then it might be easier for you to do that.
Shukran. Okay, next one's for Shaykh Jamili. Said Shaykh Jamili, thank you for the answer. Next question, is it permissible for people of the same family and locality to do Eid on separate days? If not, what is the answer for us at family level?
Yeah, it shouldn't happen, but yeah, it is possible. Yes, if you're not under a Muslim ruler, as I mentioned, as we just mentioned before, or not in a Muslim country who has a Muslim ruler who's given the clear ruling, then if you're like in the UK, whatever, UK or the American States, whatever, then it's possible for you to have different celebrate Eid on different days. I wouldn't recommend it. I would recommend that, you know, try and find a place where everyone is happy, whether that might be following the global sighting opinion or if it might be following the local sighting opinion. So find the area, you know, that you have to be comfortable with, because you can't do something which you feel your heart is not content with. You can't do that. Okay, you must follow something that your heart is content with, and at the same time following a valid opinion that is followed correctly in its methodology as well. That's it. And the only thing I would just be aware of is, people, if you're following a different opinion at the beginning and end of Ramadan, just make sure you don't end up fasting 28 days of Ramadan. Okay, because there never will be 28 days. Either it's 29 or 30. So if you are ending up mixing between opinions, I don't recommend doing that. But if you have to, then it's possible that can happen. A clear example: my family in the UK, I think they were following local sighting, so they did Eid on Saturday. I did mine on Friday. So we're not in the same household, but the point being is, you know, even though I usually tell them, because their masajid over there are usually Hanafi, so they go by global. Okay, but on this occasion they didn't. So they went by local and I said it's absolutely fine. Okay, so they did an extra day, even though I told them that it was said by Saudi. But even then, you see, as long as they, I know that it follows the correct opinion, so it's fine. Wallahu a'lam.
And last question, brother says, what are the reasons many of our big Sunni mosques with Sunni ulama in UK are not doing Eid on Friday when some countries beyond Saudi say they have also sighted the moon? Why is this? I'm gonna ask you questions.
Yeah, you'd only have only they can answer, but all I can say is that there are massive contradictions. The same Masjid followed Nigeria just a couple of years ago. But this year they didn't. I don't understand. And unless they clarify for us, either they were wrong then to follow Nigeria, or they're wrong now not to follow them. They need to clarify one way or another. But I'm only going to be speculating. All I can do is point out the evident contradictions.
Shukran. Okay, let me see if there's any relevant questions quickly. I guess this is a very specific question, but do you know what Luton Central Mosque follow, global or local?
I know that they don't eat on Saturday. What was their basis for it? Again, they would have to be asked. It's very difficult to say. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. When looking at this issue of should I do Eid on Friday or Saturday, I don't look to Luton Central Masjid or any other masjid. I look to the principles and the rulings in the Hanafi Madhab and follow them to the best of my ability. As I said in the past, when I first returned, I did used to check back with Sheikh Samir and sometimes other scholars as well. Same consistent answer every time. And this is the thing. We have massively overcomplicated the issue of moonsighting. This is why so many of the masajid, they won't announce until quite late very often. It's not the case always, because they've massively overcomplicated. Okay, we've seen them, it's been cited in such and such a place, but we're not sure if we accept them. Okay, they were cited in such and such a place. And the strangest one from the Hanafi perspective, the strangest one I ever came across is we're following South Africa. On what basis? They're not even a Muslim country. On what basis? Why? Why specifically South Africa? What's so special about South Africa? Why South Africa? It makes no sense whatsoever. And I'm sorry to say, very often when you speak with regards to actual legal fiqh issues, you receive very little in terms of actual authoritative sources.
We've just had a comment come in. I just want to highlight it. I don't know if the brother was not here when we answered it, but I think you answered this, did you not, Sheikh?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's been answered, brother. If you go backwards in the stream, inshallah, you will hear it. Let's go back to where we were. How can the Hanafi opinion favor global sighting when Imam Abu Hanifa was around a time when global communication would have been very difficult or slow?
We believe as Hanafis that the Prophet ﷺ followed global sighting. Of course, the Shafis may disagree with us, but this is our belief. This is our interpretation of the hadith. So forget Imam Abu Hanifa for a moment. We believe that the Prophet ﷺ followed that. So I don't see what the concern is. We believe that many of the Sahaba were following global sighting. So I don't see what the concern is. Now, and if the issue is that in Abu Hanifa's time there weren't means of communication, that's already been addressed. The Hanafi Madhab told us to make an adjustment. If you find out later on, you make an adjustment. They said it repeatedly. This is not, just one text you're going to find somewhere. They repeatedly gave examples of making an adjustment.
Could I just seek some clarification? It might help the listeners as well. When we say global, that's in opposed to local, right? And the local is just a small area, isn't it? So global doesn't mean you're on this side and you hear it on the other side of the world. It could just be not within that region. Do you see? So it's something like you could just come on a horse or riding or something and you could inform them later, right? It's not necessarily that it's on the other side of the world.
It don't have to be on the other side of the world, but what the Hanafis said is that a sighting in the east obliges the people in the west. No, the Hanafis said that. So it's not always going to be to that extreme, but it will oblige them. And yes, those people might find out a couple of days later. No problem. We have no issue with it. If people as I said before, if people right now have an issue with that, that doesn't make sense to me, I don't like it, it doesn't, fine, okay, but then don't lie to yourself. You're not disagreeing with this individual, with me, you're disagreeing with the Hanafi Madhab. And that's fine. If you're comfortable with that, fine. And if you feel that the Hanafis on this issue of deviant and astray, that's up to you. then think twice about calling yourself a Sunni then. Okay? Because you're doing the same thing that you accuse other people of doing. The people you say are deviant, they don't accept the madhahib. What are you doing then? No. Rather, follow the principles of Ahlul Sunnah, accept all four madhabs, follow a particular madhab, and if on a particular issue you're more comfortable with another madhab, follow it. Any Hanafi who says, look, on this issue I would prefer local citing, regional citing, other than global, I respect the opinion, but I'm just more comfortable. I say, yallah, do what you like. Got no issue with it. No. But when you say, this doesn't make sense, this is wrong, how can it be right? Fine, but be honest with yourself. You're not contradicting me, you're contradicting a good number of Sahaba, and you're contradicting 3 or 4 madhahib of Ahlul Sunnah. And you've got an issue with them, that's up to you.
I know we said we wanted to stop at 7:30. Do we have time a few more? Or?
That's fine with me, Sadie. Sure.
Okay, I will try to find the most relevant ones first. Ones that we can answer quickly, let's just try to get them out the way first, inshallah. Let's see. I think the second last one, can you remind us of the distance that local sighting covers? I think there's an answer on the website, isn't there, Sheikh?
Yeah, there is. I'm just to remind myself as well. There are 3 opinions. So one is approximately 120 to 120 kilometers to 133 kilometers. That approximation radius is agreed to be a matla, one region. Okay, it's considered to be a matla from where you are. Okay, so 120 to 133. Anything above 133 up to 32 minutes. I've just seen another comment here saying 35 minutes. That's not right. 32 minutes. Okay, up to 32 minutes is considered to be, is differed upon whether it is a matla or not, whether it's a region or not. Anything above 32 minutes is agreed upon is definitely not a region. Okay, so Morocco under this 35 minutes would not fall into the region. And according to the stronger opinion, that is from 122 to 133 kilometers, it most definitely will not fall under a region. Okay, so it's between 122. What I'd advise people is between 122 to 133 kilometers. Within that region, within that radius, it'll be considered as one region. Anything beyond that is considered out of region or differed upon, at least to up to 32 minutes. No.
Shukran. Just another one that's relevant to the topic that we can do, and then we can see if we can try to get some of the off-topic ones kind of involved as well. They're saying we're very used to Western media allowing camera crew, and as a result, against our trust. When has Saudi published their data and video footage of sighting?
They well, on Saudi TV you do see it again. You do see them going, the media going there, and they've got their instruments and they are there, etc. Sorry, I'm just looking at the last comment. So I was looking at that. So they have their media and stuff going there. I don't know whether if they let anybody else to watch them do it. I don't know. But they recently released. I sent it to Shaykh Noor that they were speaking about the issue of they base it all upon sighting, and not just the telescopes help them, but they look at sighting. Then the naked eye. That's what they base it on.
Sheikh, if you could just quickly comment on this as well.
Morocco is under 25 minutes, the Maghrib time.
Allegedly, I'll have to look it up. I'm not sure.
I will check, but even then, that is considered to be a week. That would not be. That would be considered 32 minutes. Is Sheikh Ba Makhrama be considered as a region? But again, that wouldn't be. Let me check, because I remember looking at this mas'ala with some of and we looked at it, because again, 32 minutes is not just. We're not looking at Maghrib times only. 32 minutes was a way they used in the past to define distance as well. So daqiqa is maybe a little bit different to how we understand daqiqa to be nowadays, minutes. Okay. So, but from what I remember is that it wasn't the same. It wasn't the same. No.
Okay. If we can just quickly, I know this is kind of off topic. It might be a bit long. Actually, let's just do quickly this one. If you could answer, I've heard that you cannot give your children's clothes to charity. What is the authority for this?
It's maybe referring to Hanafi Madhab. Yes, I'll try to be very brief about that. When it comes to the money and anything of value of children, until they become baligh, you have to do what's financially best for them. So you can't give their belongings or their money away as gifts or charity, such things. You're not permitted to do so. If you want them to give charity, you give them money, and then and with the intention that it's your money, they can give that way. I think this has been answered in previous Q&As.
Yes, inshallah. Let's move on.
Well. But there is some authority to this. There are some details to this. It should be studied properly.
Shukran. Okay, just for the last one to wrap up. Don't really want to open it, but it might be really long. But if we could try to summarize, inshallah, and then we will close the Q&A. The brother's saying, Shaykh Noorud-deen, here's the Sunni definition. Sunnis follow Sunni schools in fiqh and Aqidah, saying Allah is up, they are out of Sunnah. Please digest this and call it, they are not Sunni.
Sunnis follow
Sunni
schools in fiqh and Aqidah. Okay, fine. I did ask for precise referencing from classical scholars where this definition is from. I'm not opposed to this definition, but I did ask for a source. This is not good enough. This is not a source. I'm going to comment on it, but I want to start there. Which Imam of Ahlul Sunnah gave you this definition? But in any case, fine. So as far as this person is concerned, to be a Sunni, you must follow one of the four madhab, and you must follow one of the schools of Aqidah. Fine, no problem. Let's work on that definition. To say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is up. Now, I don't know exactly what this means, but yes, personally, when it comes to Aqidah, I prefer the approach of ta'weed, that we don't speak in this manner regarding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Anything that speaks about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a way that may be misconstrued by people, it's better just to interpret it. I can get on board with all of this, inshallah ta'ala, but to say that, everybody in Saudi Arabia has the belief that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a jihah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala resides in a particular direction, I'll say you're going to struggle to prove that. Shaykh Mohammed Jamili resides there, and he's just spoken to you, and he just told you earlier that most of them have very little knowledge of Aqidah. They have very little knowledge of Aqidah to just assume they all believe this is wrong. And this is pure sectarianism. I'm not saying this particular individual is a sectarian person, but this in principle is pure sectarianism, where you assume that because one or two people or a handful of people, or even lots of people from a particular group have said a particular thing or have a particular corrupt belief, it applies to all of them. This is the same as what people do to Barelvis, for example. They'll see some Barelvis making sajda to graves, they'll say all Barelvis are like this. They'll see some Deobandis saying particular things which are wrong, they'll say all Deobandis are like this. They'll come across some Salafis who will say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala resides in a direction. Let's make it clear. What the brother has said is not clear. Okay. Some Salafi may say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala resides in a direction. Okay, so you say all Salafis believe that. The entirety of Saudi Arabia believes that. Now, we have a problem here. This is at the core of sectarianism. You find a corrupt belief in some people in a particular group, you apply it to all of them. I have met Salafis who disagree with this. I'm not saying majority, minority, I'm not commenting on that. I have met Salafis who disagree with this, who say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is exalted above direction.
Jazakallah khair. I think that's all we have time for this month. Do join us next month, inshallah. There's more answers on the Islam Answers website. Inshallah, we will try to put some of the references that we've given into the description afterwards. And if you have any more questions, we do have a Q&A group. Please do join that. Till next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.